Most companies think they'll know when their AI adoption is failing. They imagine it'll be obvious. A system that breaks, a project that gets canceled, a number that doesn't move. But that's not how it happens. The first sign is much quieter, and most organizations walk right past it without noticing. I've seen this pattern repeat across insurance companies, accounting firms, medical clinics, different industries, different sizes, different tools. Same sign, every time. And once you know what to look for, you'll start seeing it everywhere too. My name is Ronald. What you're looking at right now is an AI clone deliberately. Because AI is how I work every day. Not as an experiment, not as a sob project, it's the actual work. Through my company, Datawonder, we build AI automation systems and voice agents for businesses that deal with high volumes, sensitive data, and real operational pressure. Insurance, healthcare, accounting. Places where mistakes cost money and inefficiency costs more. This channel exists because most AI content doesn't reflect what actually happens inside companies. We're here to change that. If that's the kind of analysis you're looking for, subscribe. No hype, just what's real. Now back to that sign. Here's what most organizations are watching for. Adoption metrics. How many employees are using the tool? How often? Whether the license utilization looks healthy. These numbers go into a dashboard somewhere. Someone reviews them in a quarterly meeting. Everyone nods. Adoption is progressing. But here's what those metrics don't show. They don't tell you how the tool is being used. They don't tell you whether people are using it for the work it was actually deployed for. And they definitely don't tell you whether that usage is producing anything. Activity is not adoption, and this is where companies start losing. The first real sign that AI adoption is failing isn't a drop in usage. It's a very specific kind of usage increase. People are using the tools, but only for things they were already comfortable doing. Think about what that looks like in practice. An insurance company deploys an AI assistant to handle first-line client inquiries. The goal was to reduce the volume hitting the human agents, to create a buffer, to automate the predictable routine questions, so that people could focus on cases that actually required judgment. 3 months later, adoption is strong. The tool is being used constantly. But when you look at the actual usage, the agents are using the AI to draft emails they were already writing themselves. They're asking it to summarize documents they were already reading. They're offloading small tasks that were never the problem in the first place. The first-line inquiry automation barely touched. Too uncomfortable, too new, too different from how they'd always done it. The ROI is invisible. The license cost is not. If this sounds familiar, if you've seen a version of this in your own organization, then you already understand why this sign is so dangerous. It doesn't look like failure, it looks like progress. But there's something underneath this pattern that most organizations completely miss. And it's not what you think. The standard explanation is change management. People resist change. You need better training, better communication, better incentives. Get the humans aligned and the technology will follow. That explanation is not wrong, but it's incomplete. And the part that's missing is actually where the real problem lives. I'll get to that in a moment. But first, if this video is landing for you, a like helps the algorithm put it in front of people who need to hear it. One tap. What organizations typically do when they notice this pattern? When they realize people are using AI for comfortable tasks instead of the transformational ones? Is they run a training program, they bring in a facilitator, they run workshops, they update the onboarding documentation, they create a Slack channel for AI tips and tricks. They tell their teams, use it for this, not that. And usage shifts, temporarily. But 2 months later, the pattern reasserts itself. People drift back toward comfortable. The new workflows don't stick. The transformational use cases stay theoretical, and the company concludes, this is a people problem. It's not a people problem. Here's what's actually happening. When AI gets deployed into an organization, it doesn't land in a vacuum. It lands in a structure. That structure has workflows, habits, incentives, and most importantly, accountability. Who is responsible for what the AI produces? In most companies, that question has no clear answer. The tool is deployed. People are encouraged to use it. But if the AI-assisted output is wrong, or late, or not quite right, it's unclear who owns that. Is it the person who used the tool, the team that deployed it, the vendor? That ambiguity is the actual problem. Because when accountability is unclear, people do something very predictable. They protect themselves. They use the tool for tasks where the stakes are low, where if something goes wrong, it doesn't matter. Drafting an internal email, summarizing a meeting they already attended, writing a first draft that nobody will ever hold them accountable for. They don't use it for the work that was supposed to change things, because that work has consequences, and they don't know who owns those consequences when AI is in the chain. The AI isn't failing. The accountability structure around it is. This is the second-order effect that almost nobody is managing. Have you ever been in a meeting where someone presented an AI output and then immediately spent 5 minutes explaining why they double-checked everything manually? That's not caution. That's a signal. That person doesn't trust the accountability structure. They're protecting themselves from an outcome they didn't sign up for. And when that behavior becomes the norm, when every AI-assisted output comes with a manual verification caveat, you haven't adopted AI. You've added a step to every process without removing any of the old ones. This is where the real cost hides. Not in failed projects, not in unused licenses, in the extra layer of work that wraps around every AI touchpoint because nobody defined who owns what. I see this constantly in insurance companies especially. The AI system is there. It works. The data is flowing. But every output gets reviewed, not because the quality is poor, but because no one has agreed that the AI output is authoritative. So it gets treated as a draft, always a draft. And someone always cleans it up. And that someone is always a human who was supposed to have been freed up by this system. The process doubled instead of shrinking. So what's the actual fix? It starts with something that sounds almost too simple. Before the next tool goes live, before the next system gets deployed, one conversation has to happen. Who owns this output? Not who uses the tool. Who is accountable for what it produces? That conversation forces precision. It forces the organization to decide, is this AI system a productivity enhancer where a human remains fully accountable? Or is it an autonomous process where the output is trusted to a defined standard and acted on without additional review? Both are valid, but they're completely different deployments, and they require completely different structures around them. Most organizations deploy as if they're doing the second, autonomous, trusted output, but operate as if they're doing the first. Every output reviewed, every decision second-guessed. No one willing to stake their name on an AI-assisted result. The gap between those two things is where AI adoption goes to die quietly. The first sign your AI adoption is failing is not a low usage number. It's employees using powerful tools for low-stakes tasks, wrapped in a silent, unspoken agreement that no one is really responsible for the outcome. Then the technology will actually do what you paid for it to do. If what I described today sounds like what's happening in your organization, the comfortable task drift, the manual double checks, the accountability gap nobody has formally named, I'd be glad to look at it with you. You can book a free call through the link below this video. No pitch, no pressure, just a direct conversation about where the real friction is.